Good evening and welcome to NewsNight. Tonight we'll have all your international, national, and local news. I'm Kate Montgomery.
And I am Leslie Krebs. As the Israel-Hamas war continues, talk of ceasefire isn't the only topic that protesters are calling for. Learn about who is demonstrating and what for.
And hear an update on the cleanup, recovery, and construction of Baltimore's collapsed bridge.
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
A fire at a nightclub in Istanbul has killed dozens of people. The Masquerade nightclub was not in regular operation at the time of the fire, but many people were still killed or injured. According to CNN, at least 29 people died in the blaze, which began during daytime repair work at the club. In addition to those 29, 8 people were wounded, with 7 of them categorized as seriously injured. CNN reports that the governor's office said that all of the victims were construction workers. They also report the Turkish Justice Minister Yilmaz Tunç wrote on X, quote, "Arrest warrants for 5 people have been issued, including 3 people who managed the nightclub and 1 responsible for the renovation," end quote. ABC News reports that the nightclub had the capacity to hold up to 4,000 guests and was closed for the holy Muslim month of Ramadan. The owners wanted to complete renovation work in time for an upcoming holiday. They also reported that the nightclub had, quote, "not obtained necessary permit to undertake construction and renovations," end quote, according to the mayor. The investigation is still developing.
4 hostages were released on Saturday after being held captive in a Dutch nightclub. Police had received multiple reports of a confused man bursting into the Café Petticoat nightclub while employees were cleaning up. The hostage situation took place in Ede, a town 53 miles southeast of Amsterdam. Heavily armed police were deployed to the town, where 150 nearby homes were evacuated and all trains towards the town were stopped and the station shut down. Around midday, the man was arrested on the spot after walking out of the nightclub. The Dutch police so far have not released his name, but confirm he is a citizen of the Netherlands. The man had previously been convicted of threatening behavior and was armed with knives and a backpack that is currently being examined for potential explosives. All 4 hostages were workers of the club and were released safely, with the first 3 walking out of the building with hands above their head and a 4th walking out minutes before their captor was arrested. Mayor René Verhulst said, quote, "Everything is fine. The hostage taker is arrested by the police and they are now speaking to him. And the hostages are free. They are very emotional," end quote. Mayor Martin Kunst, head of the regional public prosecutor's office, said, quote, "We are exceptionally happy that it ended this way, that the victims came out safely and that we are able to arrest the suspect without using violence," end quote. The Dutch police believe this was not an intended terrorist attack and that there are no further threats.
As we reported last week, the Moscow Crocus City Hall attack has now claimed the lives of 144 innocent civilians, leaving more than 500 attendees injured. As of now, 9 men have been detained in Tajikistan in relation to the shooting on March 22nd after having suspected contact with the attackers. Ukraine denies any involvement, and officials claim that Moscow is now using these allegations to intensify the ongoing conflict within the country. A deadly bus crash has killed nearly 50 people with only 1 survivor. Reporter Logar Abdus will tell us how this came to be. Logar?
An 8-year-old girl is the sole survivor of a bus crash last Thursday in northern South Africa. According to authorities, the bus was carrying 45 pilgrims from a village outside Botswana's capital, Gaborone, to an Easter service in northeastern Limpopo province. However, as the bus approached a bridge in the Mamatlaca mountain pass, it struck a barrier and tumbled over the side of a cliff. It erupted into flames below, killing 15 men and 31 women. The young girl is in stable condition at a nearby hospital after treatment for serious injuries. Department of Transport spokesperson Colin Mipa stated about the survivor, quote, "What we suspect is that when the bus hit the barrier of the bridge, the child was ejected out of the bus, and that is how the child was able to survive," end quote. Further rescue operations continued Thursday evening and into the next morning. Forensic investigators have retrieved 34 of the 45 bodies, but are unsure of the exact number, as many have been burned beyond recognition. Botswana's president, Mogwitsi Masisi, offered his, quote, "deepest condolences," end quote, to the families of the victims as the 2 governments work together to repatriate the remains.
Thousands of Israeli protesters crowded their Jerusalem parliament building in a mass protest throughout this weekend. calling for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's removal from office as well as the releasement of over 100 hostages held by Hamas. While there are two different stances that may seem to be opposing, family members of the hostages in Gaza strike with anti-government protesters as they claim the government is ignoring their pain. As the protests continue, pressures from the two different arguments pose a real threat to Netanyahu's political reign. When we return, hear about California's new minimum wage that may set a precedent for other states. Also, how Pennsylvania will be getting mini Punxsutawney Phils kicking off this year's spring. Stay tuned.
Donald J. Trump International Airport is what House Republicans are fighting to rename Washington's Dulles Airport, located just outside of the nation's capital in Virginia. ABC News reports that Deputy Guy Rochenthaler took to X to say, quote, freedom, prosperity, strength. That's what America stood for under the leadership of Donald J. Trump, the best president of my lifetime. And this is why I'm introducing legislation to rename Dulles as the Donald J. Trump International Airport, end quote. The Pennsylvania Republican introduced this to legislation last Friday, and since then 6 other members have co-sponsored it. ABC also reported that the Representative Abigail Spanberger said, quote, Congress must act on pressing issues like reauthorizing the FAA and passing the National Security Supplemental. Yet, this is what a member of Republican leadership focuses on. Ridiculous, but sadly real, end quote. Virginia's Dulles Airport, located near Washington, D.C., is currently named after John Foster Dulles, who was the Secretary of State under President Dwight Eisenhower. ABC reports that the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority does not have a comment on the bill.
California fast food chains have now upped their wages from $16 an hour to $20 an hour. This law went into effect Monday. It was an attempt to increase financial stability for workers in a notoriously low-paying job in a state with skyrocketing cost of living prices. Another reason for the pay increase is due to the fact most workers are adults trying to provide for their families, not young teens. The law will only apply to restaurants that offer no table service and are a part of a national chain with over 60 locations nationwide. Restaurants inside grocery stores, as well as restaurants that make and sell bread, will also be exempt from the law. The new law will apply to Panera after much debating the matter, since they do not bake their bread in-house and it is made elsewhere. The law was supported by trade associations that represent fast food franchise owners, but some are still unsure. Some are saying the increase in wages will cause them to have to fire employees, as well as stop hiring and increase their food prices to make up for lost revenue. Though data is proving otherwise, with an increase in wages, the employment rate did not decrease. Michael Reich, a labor economics professor at the University of California, Berkeley, said, quote, I was surprised at how little or how difficult it was to find disemployment effects. If anything, we find positive employment effects, end quote. With the state's minimum wage previously being $16, many restaurants and businesses already set their own standards and paid above the set minimum wage. Because of this, many professionals and experts predict the new law will cause much less trouble than anticipated. The FBI building had a mild scare this week. Reporter Ethan Rowinski has the story. Ethan.
A driver crashed their car into the gate outside the FBI's office building in Atlanta, Georgia on Monday. According to Fox News, the vehicle rammed into the employee gate shortly after noon, and the driver unsuccessfully attempted to enter the facility. The DeKalb County Police arrested the suspect, and he is in jail, according to officials. Fortunately, no injuries were reported at the scene. Law enforcement officials are now trying to determine the suspect's identity and establish a possible motive. No further details are available at this time.
Punxsutawney Phil, the infamous groundhog that predicts weather in early spring will arrive on February 2nd, is now a father. The Pennsylvania group that oversees Phil and his wife Phyllis announced last week that they are now parents to 2 baby groundhogs. The Punxsutawney Groundhog Club did not specify the genders or names of the babies, but said that they are healthy. Phil and Phyllis currently reside at the local library, but the group said that they will need to create a larger habitat for the growing family. The group said it is rare for groundhogs to breed in their current climate-controlled environment. Like many mythical creatures, Phil has his own story in that he takes, quote, elixir of life, allowing him to live forever. However, Phyllis is not allowed to take it. While there may only be one Phil, experts predict that there have been about 13 to 15 Phils since the start of this tradition in 1886. Last week, Baltimore's historic bridge collapsed, bringing casualties, debris, and concern. Reporter Logar Abdus has the update.
After last week's devastating collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, the long cleanup process finally began Saturday. The Chesapeake 1000, the largest crane on the East Coast, as well as other cranes and boats provided by the U.S. Navy, arrived to begin clearing the wreckage overnight. However, the massive cleanup effort is expected to take weeks, according to the commanding general of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Scott Spellman. States, quote, I don't think we're talking days. I don't think we're talking months. I think we're talking weeks. I just can't put a number on it yet until we get our analysis complete, end quote. Authorities hope to speed up the cleanup so that recovery efforts of the victims can continue. 4 of the 6 presumed dead are still unaccounted for. 35-year-old Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes and 26-year-old Dorlian Ronio Castillo Cabrera were recovered from a red pickup truck in the water Wednesday morning. As the cleanup and investigation continue, President Joe Biden's administration approved a $60 million request by Maryland Governor Wes Moore for federal assistance. Maryland transportation officials are beginning to consider new and innovative designs for the rebuilding of the bridge to restore a lifeline to the Baltimore region.
Kia is recalling over 425,000 of its popular SUV, the Telluride, due to a malfunction that causes the vehicle to roll away while parked. Sorry. Earlier this month, Kia decided to recall all of their 2020 to 2024 models to resolve this issue. As of now, the recall will update the electronic parking brake software in the vehicles, and any owner who has had repair expenses on their vehicle will be compensated. After the break, hear about a multitude of new road projects happening in Pittsburgh. And now Allegheny County made strides in tourism. Don't go away.
It's a tough crowd. Eaton Park restaurant that has been a community staple for years is getting a massive upgrade. According to KDKA-TV, the Bridgeville Eaton Park that has been standing alongside Route 50 since 1956 started a demolition process, and according to spokesperson Courtney Capara, this is to make way for a more modern Eaton Park diner. Kapara told KDKA, quote, "It has been in the community for almost 70 years, so it was time for a refresh. The project has been on our radar for a long time, and the timing was finally right to bring in this new modern restaurant that still celebrates Eaton Park's history, but brings the best to our guests here in Bridgeville," end quote. Another upgrade happening in the area is the expansion of Route 50 and the Washington Pike and the fixing of the intersection with Vodnam Road. Doug Thompson, Assistant District Executive of Construction for PennDOT, told KDKA, quote, "If you're traveling up Vodnam to Route 50, you could have motorists wanting to pull out of Eaton Park or pull into the old Peters Place entrance. And there were two separate entrances there. Now there will just be one. So that is an obvious intersection improvement," end quote. Both projects are expected to be completed by the end of this year.
This past Friday, the Heinz History Center, in partnership with the Veterans Breakfast Club, held a celebration in honor of the 50th anniversary of Vietnam War Veterans Day. All active duty members who fought between May 15th to November 1st, 1955, no matter where they were stationed, were welcome to be celebrated and honored. Director of the Veterans Club, Todd Despistino, said, quote, "This is our very small late gesture, a way to say thank you and welcome home 50 years later," end quote. Despistino also remarked on how unkindly veterans were treated once back home by saying, quote, "The special trauma that the Vietnam veterans experienced was their homecoming, which was horrible, and they are greeted with neglect and in some cases abuse," end quote. Over 500 attended the event, with 300 of the guests being veterans. The theme of the night was making up for lost time. A Purple Heart was even awarded 50 years later to Army combat medic Ted Debiek, who remarked, quote, "It feels like justification, finally, that I'm getting a Purple Heart," end quote. All veterans who attended were gifted welcome home bags as a thank you for their service. The event holders wanted to celebrate in order to help others remember and educate the younger generations. The celebration was also a way to help veterans heal and cope with past memories of the war. Veteran Larry Guggen said, quote, "An event like this now is to remember that those who fought in the war in Vietnam weren't any different than the veterans that fought in World War II or Iraq or Afghanistan in all of our current wars," end quote.
Last week, Visit Pittsburgh held their annual meeting at Stage AE, where they announced that 2023 was a record year for Allegheny County tourism. According to the organization, the economic impact of tourism in the county capped at $6.4 billion. This revenue comes from sports events, concerts, professional conferences, and other high-profile events. Visit Pittsburgh also reported that the tourism economic baseline predicts visitor spending will increase to $6.7 billion in 2024, thus gaining around 2,000 jobs in the tourism industry. Pittsburgh roads are getting a revamp. Learn about what roads, bridges, and interstates are being affected with reporter Ethan Rowinski. Ethan?
Several major road projects are slated to kick off in the Pittsburgh region. This work includes projects on major area roadways throughout PennDOT District 12, which includes Allegheny, Beaver, and Lawrence counties. This will be another summer of work on Interstate 79 by the Neville Island Bridge, where crews will finish the project north of the bridge. However, there are lots left to do south through the S-bends, according to KDKA. The northbound lanes will split just after the Kraft and Robinson exit, with the left lane crossing over to the southbound side, which will be an express lane only. The right lane will remain on the northbound side with full access to all exits. On the Parkway East, Interstate 376 construction will begin on the stretch of the road between Churchill and Monroeville. PennDOT will be installing single-lane restrictions beginning on April 8th, and most of the work will occur overnight. According to WPXI, this is part of a $70 million project to replace the concrete median barrier, repave the road, and preserve 6 bridges along that part of the highway. Now, there is some good news for those who drive Pennsylvania Route 28. Work will be finishing up between Harmarville and Russellton, officially ending many years of work on that road. In total, about $480 million will be allotted to the construction work this season.
Last Monday, University Provost Michael Soto announced that the current Dean of the School of Arts and Sciences, Josie Brown, will be leaving the university in July. Brown will be heading to the University of Hartford in Connecticut, where she will also serve as their Dean of School of Arts and Sciences. Soto said in an email, quote, "Without a doubt, Dr. Brown will be sorely missed, and we will thank her for the tremendous work she has done for Point Park," end quote. Brown joined the university in July of 2022. Before that, she worked for Western New England University in Springfield, Massachusetts. When we come back, a local pizza shop adopts a payment method that brings the community together. Also, hear about this week's upcoming weather. Stay with us.
local pizza shop is giving back to the community in a delicious way. JJ's Pizza, located in Scottsdale, Pennsylvania, has created a Pay It Forward board. The owner, Heather Wishart, told KDKA that she got the idea from a coffee shop in Maryland. The restaurant posted the board on their Facebook in a recent post reading, quote, "This board is for anyone in need or who has fallen on hard times. No questions asked," end quote. The board is filled with red and pink paper hearts with writing on them ranging from $5 off the person's next bill to a free large cheese pizza. To use these, all people need to do is take a heart off of the board and present it to the register. Anyone is welcome to donate, and the community has been filling the board up. Bouchard said, quote, "It just makes you proud because we have such a good small town and that it just spreads. I actually had a couple of people in line do it because they saw the first person do it, and it just takes off from there," end quote. From high temperatures to tornado watches, Pittsburgh's weather has been very confusing lately. Don't worry, because weather reporter Savannah Icatch will give you the details about the upcoming days.
We miss you, spring weather. These past few days have been nothing but rainy, cold, and cloudy, and tomorrow's weather will be the same. The morning will start off with a cool temperature of 46, but with a feel of 37 degrees. Make sure to get your windbreakers out because the wind speed will be around 15 miles per hour. The low will be around 36 degrees with a feel of 28, so there may be spots of snow throughout the afternoon and evening, but luckily, no snow will stick. As in the previous days, there's a flood warning that started this Monday and will last till tomorrow at 10 p.m. After tomorrow, the rain will get lighter as the week goes on, as Friday will be a little colder, but with spots of rain and snow in the morning and afternoon. Saturday will be a comfortable temperature with the high being 50 degrees with some sun and no showers. It only gets hotter from there as Sunday and Monday will reach the mid-60s with the rest of the week hitting the early 70s. While we have to brunt the rainy weather in the next couple of days, spring is on its way. Now back to the desk.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of NewsNight. If you want to see more, check out our social media pages on both Facebook and Instagram at UView Television.
You can also check out more episodes on our YouTube channel or our website, uview.pointpark.edu. I'm Leslie Krebs.
And I'm Kate Montgomery. From everyone here at NewsNight, thank you for watching and have a great evening.